Pawtucket, it's a mad show. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Stephen Buckner, joined tonight by my lovely co-host, PJ Pat Tierney, and we are here to talk about movies. Pat has not seen a movie that has come out in the last 20 years, but he has seen two movies that did come out prior to 20 years. So if we run out of things to talk about, we can talk about the rather old movies that Patrick has seen.
Well, the classic ones I saw for the first time.
Yes, actually, I was very surprised that Patrick had not seen either of these movies because both are animated movies, but you think he would have seen them. But I'm going to talk about two movies.
We'll start with this
relatively
century.
new movies. Yeah, from this year. Well, one of them's from this year. But neither one are in the top 5 of the box office. I was surprised to see that there really wasn't a new movie that came out this past weekend that hit number 1. It's the number 1 and number 2 movies are still Super Mario Brothers and Project Hail Mary. I still have not seen Super Mario Brothers. I don't know if I'll see it by our next show either. It may just fall by the wayside. But
it's going to be on streaming like in just a couple of weeks because that's what happened.
That's true. So the two movies I did see that I want to talk about tonight are both similar blends of genres. They're both kind of action comedies. So the one that just came out this weekend that we'll get to in a couple of minutes is called Normal, which stars Bob Odenkirk. And so we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But the first one I want to talk about is a movie called Dust Bunny, which probably no one in our audience has heard of.
I feel like I saw a trailer for it at some point.
Yeah. I don't even know if I ever saw a trailer. I do remember when the star of the movie, Mads Mikkelsen, was out promoting it, but it never came out around here, I don't think.
Is it animated or is it like Teeny Little Super Guy animated?
No, it's not an animated movie. It's live action. It's the first movie directed by Brian Fuller, who, I don't know if you know who Brian Fuller is, but if our audience doesn't know, Brian Fuller is a TV writer and producer. He's been working well over 20 years in the business. He started on Deep Space Nine as a writer. I think he also wrote for Star Trek Voyager, and then he went on to start. He also, I think, was the creator of Star Trek Discovery, but he left that show midway through the first season. So don't blame him if you don't like Discovery, because he doesn't like Discovery either. But he went on to create a bunch of shows, and 2 of which I really loved. One which only lasted 2 seasons called Pushing Daisies.
Oh, I've seen that. I love that show.
That's a fantastic show. I absolutely love it. And they keep teasing that he might try to do a revival of it somehow, and I wish he would. But that was a great show. It starred Kristen Chenoweth, Lee Pace. It was just such a creative show. I absolutely loved it. And the narrator,
Jim Dale,
who had read the Harry Potter audiobooks years ago. The other show he did that I really loved was Hannibal, which was a TV version of Hannibal Lecter. And it starred Mads Mikkelsen, who was in this movie. And that was a fantastic show. I'm not really usually into serial killer movies or shows, but it was just so well done. And Mads Mikkelsen became Hannibal Lecter. For me,
Yeah.
he eclipsed, I can't even remember his name.
Anthony Hopkins.
He was so fantastic in the role.
Well, he has that dangerous whisper thing.
Yeah, he's someone who, when he's talking, because he was a fantastic villain in Casino Royale.
Casino Royale, yeah.
And he's played villains. I mean, our audience might know him best as Galen Erso from Rogue One. But he's a fantastic actor. So here, in this movie, he's working again with Brian Fuller. Brian Fuller wrote and directed this movie. And I was surprised to find that this is actually the first movie that he's directed. I didn't realize he hadn't directed anything before. So the premise of it, it's kind of a fusion of a John Wick type action movie with the sort of whimsical fantasy of Pushing Daisies.
Okay.
Or for someone not familiar with Pushing Daisies, it kind of has the vibe of a Wes Anderson movie. It has that sort of timeless aesthetic to it, where there's lots of visual flair, or just a lot of attention to detail to the production design. And all of his stuff, Pushing Daisies and Hannibal, both had fantastic visual aesthetics to them, and so does this. And that's part of why I really like it. But the premise of it is that this little girl believes that a monster under her bed has eaten her parents. So she decides she's going to hire her next door neighbor to kill the monster that's under her bed, because she's afraid that the monster is now going to eat her. And the reason that she believes that he will kill the monster for her is because she thinks that she has seen him kill a monster, where she wishes for help with the monster, and this firefly comes down from the stars. I don't know if she mistakes it for the star or what, but she follows it, and it leads her to him, and she sees what she thinks is him killing a monster, but in reality, he's a hitman, and he was in Chinatown and was attacked by people in a Chinese dragon costume, and of course he's fighting those people and killing them, and she's only seeing it in the shadows, so she's just seeing an outline of a dragon that he is fighting off. Yeah. So he, of course, thinks that the girl is, maybe a little crazy, or it's just a child's imagination. So at first he wants nothing to do with her, but he starts being more and more intrigued or a little concerned. And so he wants to get the issue solved so that he can be rid of this girl who's constantly following him. So the movie really makes you sort of question, is she really seeing a monster under her bed? Because they do show it.
Yeah.
It's not like Jaws where they don't show, although they do sort of tease it a little bit at first. But they do show you the monster. But they make you question whether or not you're just seeing what she's imagining, or is it something real? Because as the hitman, who doesn't even have a name, I think he's just referred to as the intriguing neighbor in the credits. But he keeps digging into her past and keeps finding things that lead him to believe that, she's seen something disturbing, and that's why she's coping with it by imagining this monster. So it's sort of, like I said, a little bit like a John Wick crime action movie, where you've got the Mads Mikkelsen side of it. He's a hitman, and the woman who is sort of it's implied she's his boss, or at least someone who hires him for his jobs, is played by Sigourney Weaver. And then you've got the fantasy side of the girl and what she is seeing, and her whole world. And it's just, it's a nice mixture of the fantasy and comedy and the action. And it's all really well done, really well performed. Mads Mikkelsen is good. Sigourney Weaver is good in her smaller part. The little girl is fantastic, very deadpan a lot of times. And it sort of, in addition to the movies I talked about, it also gives off a Leon the Professional vibe. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. That's a classic movie that starred Natalie Portman. I think it might have been Natalie Portman's first movie.
Okay.
Where she is, it's a very similar story. She's someone whose parents have been killed by hitmen, and she hires a hitman. No, she doesn't hire the hitman in that story, but she sort of gets taken under the wing of a hitman and wants to learn to become a hitman herself. So it kind of has a lot of, I think it was probably inspired a lot by that movie, which came out like 30 years ago because Natalie Portman was a child in that movie.
Yeah, because Phantom Menace was 99, so it had to be 90.
In that, so it was
97.
That. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that movie. I would say I actually probably loved it. I would watch it again. It's something I would consider like buying.
Is it in theaters still, or is it on streaming?
No, it's not. So it came out last year, and like I said, I don't think it ever got a local release around here. And now it's streaming. I saw it on HBO Max. So I wasn't even expecting to see that on there. I just happened to notice it was playing, and I was like, oh, I wanted to see this. So it was a happy accident that I got to see it. So I highly recommend it. I don't say too much anymore that I loved a movie, because really most movies are just okay. I'll say I liked it, but very rarely do I ever love a movie, and I loved this movie. So there's that. The other movie I saw, also one that hasn't got a lot of attention, I think hasn't got a lot of publicity, is Normal, which stars Bob Odenkirk in another action comedy movie. So he's sort of had like a third act now to his career. He started off in comedy. He was a writer on Saturday Night Live. He had his own sketch show on HBO. And then he veered into drama with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And I think, his stock shot up when he was doing Better Call Saul. A lot of people know him just for that. But then a couple of years ago, he did Nobody, which was, again, a John Wick type action movie.
I'm trying to picture him. He's not the guy that was in. The guy I'm picturing
was in
Supernatural. He was in.
No, I'm trying to think of what else you might have seen him in, because he shows up in a lot of comedy things, usually in a small part, usually not the star, but Better Call Saul kind of turned him into a star, and Nobody, I think, was maybe the first starring movie role I've seen him in. I know he's been in movies, I just can't think of one where he's been the main star of it. But Nobody, was a very successful movie for him, even though it was like a low budget. I think it did well, enough so that they made a sequel last year, which I talked about on the show when that came out. So this is another movie that's very much in the vein of the two Nobody movies. And it's even confusing that the title is another one word that starts with N. It's Normal. And I kept thinking it was Nobody. It's like, no, Nobody is the other movies. And then I started calling it Nowhere, which it's not Nowhere. It's Normal. And the premise of this movie is that he is the interim sheriff in this small Minnesota town called Normal. And he's the interim sheriff because the previous sheriff has died, and they're holding elections for the new sheriff. So he is filling in until the elections. So he's there sort of to not make waves, just fill in the gap until that election. And part of the reason that he's there, which he is unaware of, is that they don't want someone making waves because this town is in the pocket of the Japanese mob, the Yakuza, which you see how serious and violent they are in the very first scene of the movie. So he, and he's fine with not making, he has his own reasons for just taking these temporary positions where he's not going to have much of an effect and he's just going to, ride it out until it's over and then move on to his next gig. But he has no idea of the history of the town and what's going on underneath. And it's not until two other people who are also not from the town come into town to rob the bank. And it sets off this chain of events where the Yakuza are now aware of the bank being robbed and they're coming to town. And the people of the town are, they want to make sure that they're not going to piss off the Yakuza. So it's the entire town versus the sheriff now. Because he, as much as he doesn't want to make waves, he's not a crooked cop. He's a stand-up guy. So when he discovers what's actually happening in this town, it sets him versus the town of 1,000 people. And it's just this lots of shootouts, tons of explosions. It gets very, sometimes a little bit gory in some of the things, but it's sort of tempered by the comedy of it. You see like someone die in an explosion, but it's comical in the way that it's done. It's almost cartoonish, So it's pretty funny. Aside from Bob Odenkirk, it stars Lena Headey in a small part. She had played Cersei in Game of Thrones.
Okay.
And then Henry Winkler plays the town mayor. So you have the Fonz in it, playing a very un-Fonzie-like role, but it does have the Fonz in it. And that may be, as far as it goes with name celebrities. The rest of the people, I don't think I really recognize too many of them. One of them I know I've seen in something else, but he's not a famous guy, and I have no idea what the actor's name is. But it's pretty decent B action movie. I feel like the last 2 or 3 shows I keep comparing things to John Wick, but John Wick really has created this new sort of subgenre of action movies.
I have to see the end of John Wick because I had rented John Wick
The first one?
On Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray was all scratched about a little more than halfway through, and I had to stop. And I just have to get another copy of it in order to
I'm
watch
sure
the
it's
ending
available
of it.
somewhere. But I forget how long ago John Wick came out because there's been 4 of them.
Yeah.
But there's been all sorts of knockoffs and imitators.
Yeah, Ballerina and...
Ballerina is actually a legitimate spin-off of John Wick. But yeah, they keep trying to create the next John Wick.
It's Die Hard on a train, Die Hard on a bus, Die Hard on a boat.
Yeah, you had for a while everything was a
Die
spin
Hard on
on
Air
Die
Force
Hard. Then for quite a while everything was a spin on The Matrix.
Yeah.
And now all these action movies we see are a takeoff. Well, for a while it was Taken.
Yeah.
You had a lot of, and Taken really is sort of the one that really started this trend of low budget B action movies, and you still get some of those. It seems like Jason Statham has taken over for Liam Neeson.
Like Bullet Train.
Well, Bullet Train is a little bit more like John Wick.
Yeah.
Which I enjoy that too, because that also had a sort of a comedic angle to it. I like the action movies when they're a little bit comedic. So the Nobody movies, Bullet Train, those are sort of my speed. Sometimes some of these action movies are just, they might be over the top, but they're over the top as far as being gory and bloody. This movie, it's a little bit gory because, people blow up.
Yeah.
But it's not so gory that you're ew, gross. It's not people doused in in blood, and you see
And not
body
Carrie.
parts strewn about. Yeah, like there was a movie I saw a couple of years ago. I can't even remember the name, but it starred Bill Skarsgård, and that was like the bloodiest action movie I've seen in years. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, it's not that. So those are the two that I've seen. I thought we could fill time if we needed to tonight, talking about summer movies, but I didn't actually take the time to do some research to see, aside from the ones I already know about,
Yeah.
what other ones there are to look forward to and when they're coming out.
I off the top of my head, what comes to my mind is Disclosure Day and Dune 3.
Yeah, and Disclosure Day, I'm not sure when that's coming out, but I'm not sure when Disclosure Day is. but I think I might have mentioned this to you. I don't know if it was on the air, but it might have been off the air last time. It's like if I didn't know it was directed by Spielberg, I don't know that I'd be that interested in seeing it because it doesn't look that interesting.
Yeah, it looks odd, but I mean, he does have a good track record, not perfect track record, but good track record with Aliens.
That's true. Yeah. So I will go see that because it's Spielberg. So I will hold out hope that it will be. And there have been other Spielberg movies that have come out that I wasn't that enthused to see, and then it was like a absolutely fantastic movie, like Bridge of Spies. That's one of his best of this century.
This century.
Because honestly, his best work is from the last century. This century
the
has
80s
not
and
been.
the late 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yes, but that's one of the standout movies from the last 25 years of his work. But as far as other big movies, the big one that everyone's talking about and they're going to continue to talk about is The Odyssey.
Yeah.
Which is Christopher Nolan taking
and that
on the
comes out in July.
classic. Yeah, I think so. And I'm going to see it because I've wanted to see a movie version of The Odyssey for quite a while. And then, of course, you got Christopher Nolan. He's one of those, like Spielberg, his name attached to something is what drives you to go see the movie.
I mean, do you remember the USA TV version of The Odyssey from the
I don't think I ever saw that.
from the 90s with Armand Asante?
Maybe I did see that.
It was on like USA, and it was like it made the computer animation on Hercules: The Legendary Journey look like top notch.
Really? Okay.
I was in high school at that point, and I was going through a major like Greek myth phase, and I remember renting it on VHS from Blockbuster.
Well, that's the thing about this one that's coming out is that, as much as I like Christopher Nolan, he to me seems an odd choice to take on The Odyssey because it's steeped in Greek myth. There's the centaur, there's Circe, the sorceress, who turns them into pigs. And, of course, the gods are a huge part of it. Like Athena and Poseidon are the ones that keep him from returning home. And he is sort of, even though he's done sort of fantastic stuff like the Dark Knight movies, those Dark Knight movies were very grounded in reality for a Batman movie. They didn't lean into the comic book roots of it. It was more like Batman made for the real world. And I don't see him leaning into the mythology aspects of this so much. More he's going to lean into, the after effects of someone who's been at war for a long time and is trying to come home. So I will see it, but as far as what's coming out this month, there's two movies that I'm interested in seeing. One, which the title is escaping me at the moment, but it stars Jason Segel and Samara Weaving as a married couple trying to kill each other, which looks really funny. And then there's a biopic about Michael Jackson called Michael. So those, I think the Michael one comes out this week. The other one might also come out this week. So that's what we have to look forward to this month. So we'll be back next month in May, and we'll talk more about the summer movies. I think the big first summer release is Devil Wears Prada 2. I don't know that we'll be talking about that one right away. Hopefully there's something better counter programming coming out against that. But thank you everyone for watching, and like I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Have a good night.